Namaskar and welcome to this exciting show, Sattology Debunking Mythology, Dev-Ayana, Pitru-Ayana versus Dakshin-Ayana, Uttar-Ayana. And these are all the directions and the movement of sun and the astronomical arrangement of the stars through which we actually calculate our own time and also a specific procedures which are meant for increasing our knowledge. And so it's going to be very interesting because Vedic knowledge is all scientific. I mean, there is no, everything is research based and you can experience it. When you can experience something, why you want to believe in something? If somebody tells me coffee is very good, instead of believing in him, I would rather ask him a cup of coffee and then taste it. So Vedic culture is like that. And my amazing friend today, he's going to show us how to experience it. You have seen him in so many videos, so many books, a very popular personality in this area of study. So without delay, let us welcome Sri Nilesh Neelkant Oak.
Namaskar, Aditya ji.
Okay.
Happy Thanksgiving.
आपको बहुत बहुत happy Thanksgiving to you and all the viewers also. And Nilesh ji, like one thing amazes me. Looks like you are the new Muni, the Vyasa Muni of modern time, the Nilesh Muni. So much thought and research that you put into these topics, and it's really amazing. So thank you very much for coming on the show today. So
All
Nilesh,
right. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Aditya ji.
so Nilesh ji, before we start off anything, what is the secret of your dedication?
That's a good one. So I'm going to use the term that you used, calling me Muni, and thank you for doing that. Um, See, so we were at our friend's place just 3 days ago, and so anywhere we go together, and some people are like totally wowed by the research that I have done, and they look at it with awe and reverence, and then my wife Ashwini, she will say, well, come to our house and see what goes on. If you hear what he's talking, our conversations, you will hardly think he's like a very serious researcher. So but that is what Upanishads are actually asking us to do. For example, if I'm trying to think, is it a Mandukya, Brodarnakya? I think it's Brodaranyak Upanishad. But whichever it says Tasmad Brahmana, meaning after that or now that the person is knowledgeable. That Brahmana is the word used in the sense of knowledge here, Jnani. In that sense it is used. Tasmad Brahmana Pandityam Nirvidya Balena Tishtaset. So the person who is a knowledgeable must able to digest his erudition and live like a child, joking, frolicking, playing, and something like this, and then it goes on and it says, Pandityam cha Balyam cha Nirvidya. You also have to digest those both, right? Atha Muni. And maunam cha amaunam cha nirvidya atha brahmana. See, it's completing a circle. So then the muni also you have to digest, amauna also you have to digest, and then you become truly knowledgeable. So we started with the knowledgeable, ended up with the truly knowledgeable. So I think that's the secret. I live like a child. I you say what you call faltu jokes, like a PJ. I'll be like doing joking to keep myself lightheaded, in terms of just discussing. And so you can then think about serious matters.
A
So that's
lightheaded,
my secret.
lightheaded is a different connotation in the Western
Oh,
world.
I know. I shouldn't have said light-headed. Keep myself light.
Yes. So,
Yeah, I know. Understand.
so,
Okay,
so
so today we have
coming back,
something.
let's finish
Yeah,
this before we start off.
sure.
One of the things which is said, you can give all the pravachan and talks outside, and in the house somebody is going to ask you, did you fold your clothes?
Hmm.
Does that happen to you sometimes?
It happens all the time. See, between me and Ashwini, and actually we are the like the North and the South Pole, and we'll talk today about the North and the South Poles. This is the Deva-Ayana versus Pitru-Ayana, or Dakshin-Ayana versus Uttar-Ayana. These are the two different poles and two different paths. But for the what that makes it compatible. For example, anytime we are going out on the travel, like Ashwini would be prepared like 5 days in advance. Like she will know exactly what she's packing and all that. And let us say our flight is 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Around 12 o'clock, I said, "Oh, I need to do a laundry." So yes, I do get that.
So now let us start the yarn system we have. We'll try to go and define all these things: Uttarayan, Dakshin, and Devayan, Pitrayan.
Right, right. And
So
yeah, and then we will also see why. So we are going to today uh, help people. I mean, those who are watching it today, but those who will watch afterwards on the YouTube, and it becomes like a resource material. Like all
Mhm.
the shows, all the conversations, Aditya ji, that we are creating are essentially like a small reference modules
Exactly.
to understand Indian civilization, to
Yes.
understand astronomy, understand different scientific disciplines. Okay, so today also what we will create, my desire is that, and I'm convinced that it will act as a reference tool. So anytime anyone finds a confusion of this Pitru-Ayana, Deva-Ayana, the Asura Bhag in astronomy versus Sura Bhag in astronomy, the area of Asuras, areas of Sura, and then Uttar-Ayana and Dakshin-Ayana, and it is context for when the year begins, the seasons, and also the Mahabharata timing. Not just the dating, I mean, but even understanding the aspects of Mahabharata, we need to understand this. And what has happened, because our civilization, or let's say Indian civilization, is so deep, I mean, in terms of antiquity, what happens? Something is going on for so long, the different changes takes place. And when the change takes place, at that time, people think they know it. We don't feel a need to document it. Okay, now because of Wikipedia and all that, now we have a documentation of Julian calendar changed to say Gregorian calendar. And now because of Wikipedia, everyone knows about it too, right? Google and all that. But if when that was not there, many people didn't know when this calendar began, the current Gregorian calendar. Same thing happened on a massive scale with Indian civilization, and therefore Indian civilization's calendars. I'm using that as a plural. Okay, so that's what has caused the confusion. And although the confusion is bad, that confusion has also actually also allows us to realize how old Indian civilization is. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing.
So before you can
Yeah.
share right now, we can
Okay.
talk
Go ahead.
there.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Ayana.
Huh.
Ayana means a place of residence or place of position. Am I right?
Okay. Ayana simply means a journey, a
Right.
travel, a movement. Okay,
And
so Niketa would be like a house or something. And there can be many words for that. But here, like to think of Ramayana, like Rama's journey
mm,
or Rama's motion, Rama's movement, like, whole Ramayana essentially is talking about Rama's journey, right? His initial young life is quickly covered, and
like
then
a
he's
point
sent to
of
Vanavas.
reference,
Hmm?
like a point of reference
But Ayana means journey. Okay, so
journey.
Rama Ayana is like Rama journey would be like a simplistic translation, and we will see here now. Here, whose journey we are talking? We are referring to sun's journey here. So Deva Ayana is a sun's journey through the area of Deva. Pitru-Ayana is a sun's journey through the area of a Pitrus.
Mhm.
Uttar-Ayana is a sun's journey in the northern direction.
Mm,
Dakshin-Ayana is a sun's journey in the southern direction.
mm.
Okay, so those are the words. And one key thing we are going to look at to understand the difference between the two is to understand that even within the Indian civilization, if you look at the Vedic narratives, like so Vedas, which means the Samhitas, Brahmanas, Aranyaka, Upanishad, in most cases you're going to hear the words such as Deva Ayana, Pitru Ayana. And I also want to introduce another term, just like a Deva is simply translated, not the best translation and actually a wrong translation, but let's go with that, which is to say like a god. And then the Asura is like a demon. Pitru means ancestors. So over time, Deva Ayana and Pitru Ayana also is used as a Sura Ayana. Okay, the land of Sura, the area of Sura, meaning like a Deva, and Asura, meaning those who are not Deva. And very crudely, they're sometimes translated as God and demons, which is not correct, but that's what has happened. Uttara means north, Dakshina means south. Okay, it comes, that's from there that the word Dakshina comes the word dexterous, because usually our right side and right hand, that's typically stronger unless you are a left-handed, right? So that's what we're going to look at. Now let us see what is, so let's define those. So Deva-Ayana and Pitru-Ayana. And we said from Vedic narratives versus epic, Siddhantic, and Puranic narratives. So I want to just start with those definitions. It may not be easy to read, and that's perfectly fine. The expectation is not that people will able to read this. But right at the middle, what we have is the Vedas. So Rigved, Samaved, Yajurved, Atharvaved, and what is inside those? So Samhita, we can define that as a Samhita, Brahmanas, Upanishad, Aranya. So that's the classification. And then to understand that Veda, and of course for many other reasons, which is Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, and getting the guidance, we have these so many other different branches of the ancient narratives. So we have the Puranas, Upapuranas, Sutra literature, Itihasa, like Ramayana, Mahabharata, okay, Upaveda, like so you have a Dhanurveda, Ayurveda, and so on and so forth, the Brahmana text, Vedanga, the Jyotish text, like the astronomy text, and so on, okay. So that's what we are referring to the as a ancient narratives. So Vedic verses, we are going to look at epic, Siddhantic, and Puranic. So Puranas are also here. Now, quickly, I want to show you what causes the problem, or actually what happens, Aditya ji, is this. Many people, actually, I'm going to show you, this is related to this, but what causes the confusion? Because people, as soon as they hear the word Dakshin-Ayana, Uttar-Ayana, or Deva-Ayana or Pitru-Ayana, immediately, instead of verifying what text they are reading and therefore what meaning should be understood, they will just run away with the meaning that they know. Now, this is a problem of a mind. Okay, so even when you have some doubt, you immediately run to the solution. Okay, and yesterday I was talking to one wonderful student of Madhvacharya philosophy, the Dvaita Vedanta, amazing individual, so he's in originally from India, he's in Australia. And I'll tell you the definition of a mind that he gave. I mean, something most of us know, but so what happens, why many of these people right now watching here, or many of the people who watch YouTube, why do they do that? Because in some ways there is some doubt in our mind, right? Something that we don't know and we want to know. So that's a samshaya. Now, samshaya is not a bad word. It can be bad, it can be good. And we are going to see what defines that. So I'm defining on one axis the samshaya as a doubt. The other axis, I'm defining shraddha. That is like a reverence, faith, conviction, trust, into something, whatever that is, okay? A shraddha. And so samshaya can be of a mind. Like I have written on the left side, manas, okay, or manas. That is the mind. And on the right side, I have written as a buddhi. Now, the definition I was telling you, that this wonderful individual from Australia who discussed with me yesterday, so he was actually walking me through certain aspects of Madhva philosophy. And he said, okay, so tell me. So he was asking me the question first. He will demand that I give answer, and then he will give his understanding. So when it came to mind, I mean, I said whatever I wanted to say. And he said, well, think of his definition. Think of it as a supercomputer, okay, with data that what it, according to its own conditioning, that own conditioning of the supercomputer, it processes it and gives the output. That is a mind. Okay, that's what he uses, a manas. Now, what Krishna tells us in Bhagavad Gita is that if your mind is in the right place, it will be beneficial. But if it is not, it will actually lead you to destruction. Especially saying, if you don't have a shraddha, if you don't have a reverence, respect, trust, conviction in something to start with, and then you speculate, which is what mind does, like a dry speculation, then it says, right, what is that? Samshayatma vinashyati. It will lead to complete destruction. So that's that extreme left side, we can say. The right side is a buddhi, which is a proper use of intellect, consciousness, pradnya, whatnot. And so, and then shraddha, I'm putting it, shraddha is also of a tamas kind, and all the way to the sattva kind, right? And a very whole extreme, two extremes. So now what does that tell us is this. For example, shraddha, the power of a shraddha, and we can see this in, of course, in a dharma tradition, but we can actually see this with all religions, or actually all ideologies. That, if somebody who is very attached to a particular religion, it doesn't matter which one, or a particular ideology, and in some sense convinced of that ideology, that person can actually do a lot of work. That's why I'm written karma shakti or karya shakti. actually can achieve a lot, good or bad. We are not discussing that, but good or bad, right? A nationalist spirit or believing in certain ideology, it can do that. And
Purusharth.
what does, go ahead,
Purusharth.
Purushartha, right? Yeah. Now, the good or bad, I'm not saying it's always good, okay? Because depending on what the ideology is. Now, what does the samshaya achieves? Meaning, if you have a true doubt and you want to know the answer, then it can lead to jnana shakti,
Yeah.
okay? The power of knowledge, okay? And what is the sort of a good combination of these two? The combination is, I'm going to show you with just a quick metaphor. Now, have you seen this? It's not that unusual now, so that's the accelerator there. Instead of at the feet, this is called, I forgot, K4 K5 system or something like this. Many handicapped people can also use it very efficiently, so those people who cannot operate with feet or for some reason, or one leg. So you have a steering wheel, and the other hand where that person has placed it, it's actually the accelerator, okay? And you can also put it on auto and like a cruise speed and whatnot, but also just press it. So think of this: you need a force to go forward. Think of that as a shraddha, that acceleration. But if you don't have a steering wheel, it can quickly end in a disaster. Okay, so that's that jnana shakti. Now you bring those together in a right way, and it can do wonders. You can see the beautiful. You have a wonderful drive. If not, then there are these problems, right? The dependency, for example. So you don't have that buddhi, which is to say the steering wheel is not there. That's like literally blindly walking. You don't know where the car is going to go. And then if you don't have the power to go further, then you are dysfunctional. I mean, you have a car but no gas in the car, it's not going to go anywhere, unless it's an electrical car, of course. Okay, it's not going to go. So this is my quick framework, and what it does, I don't want to spend too much time on this. These are the categories that you'll see. So person who has no shraddha, or rather tamasic shraddha, and person who chooses not to use his intellect but rather goes with just pure speculation, the situation of that person is like a fearful, confused, and a time waster for others. Because usually you will, once in a blue moon, something good will come out, but mostly it's a cognitive dissonance, total confusion. Okay, the lightheadedness, we can say, also the lightheadedness we talked about. Okay, then the other person who has a shraddha, that may not be a huge on the intellect or a use of intellect, that person will get definitely will do something, and I'm going to show you what. But still that person is fearful because of the lack of knowledge, or due to the non-usage of knowledge, the person remains fearful. Also because of that remains cocksure, and then also directionless. So what that person does, that person confuses the claims or data with the truth. Okay, we'll go quickly through this. The second, third one here is that the use of a buddhi but no shraddha. Now that is also a challenge, because that person will come out as arrogant, brash, and aimless. In fact, that person's research will also come out like this, because that person pretends knowledge for the truth. Now, in this case, the knowledge is there, which is a great thing. Just like having a reverence, and if happens to be a reverence for the truthful knowledge, then that's a good thing, right? Because even if the person doesn't know whether it's right or wrong, he takes it with a reverence, and therefore it comes out correct. Here, pretending knowledge for the truth, if the knowledge is correct and if that is all is required, then it's good. But they might miss the context. And the ideal situation is to have a sattvic shraddha and a sattvic buddhi. That person or that person's work will come out. I'm not just talking research. Anything that he or she will do, that person's outlook would be fearless, would be humble, because they recognize they can be wrong, and their outlook is also solution oriented. So what do? They validate what they hear, what they read, what others tell them, but they also realize that the meaning can change in the context. So they learn to contextualize the data and the knowledge, whatever that they have. So this framework is important, because look what happens. And these are frequently asked questions that I get. I use that same samshay, put from mana to buddhi, that is from mind to intellect. And this is the force of knowledge, jnana shakti. If you go on the second axis, the one we just did on the previous page, shraddha, that goes from tamasic, like ignorant mode, to goodness mode. That gives you karma shakti. Now, I realized that sometimes those two are just not enough. And how did I realize that? Of course, it is given in all our ancient narratives. I mean, actually you can say the all the philosophic traditions of the world, all the religions of the world. But I realize when people come to me asking for my help, and then I realize, my God, why are they not getting what I'm trying to tell them? And so one thing is also important is that jidnyasa. Okay, now quickly, so as a fun, for example, how do we translate jidnyasa? And I used to, how would you translate it, Aditya ji?
Jigyasa means uh, quest for knowledge.
Right, quest for, no, actually you did a better translation. I was hoping to trap you with the wrong translation. Okay, many people including myself, I would quickly do jidnyasa as a curiosity. But yours is a correct translation, by the way. The quest for knowledge is the correct one. But so first I'll give you, because even I have translated many times as a kutuhala, like just a curiosity.
Yeah,
On the other hand, the jidnyasa is more than a kutuhal.
correct.
Okay, it is like what, as you said, quest for knowledge, meaning the person is going to do something about it, not just saying, oh yeah, that will be very interesting to know, please tell me what happened. No, that is not jidnyasa. That is
Like
just
what,
a cute.
like
Yeah.
many Quora researchers do. Is
Yeah, you
they
are
look at
joking, of course.
many Quora researchers. They go there and then they're very satisfied, or if somebody tells them anything, and then their jigyasa is over very fast.
Hmm,
Starts very quickly and ends very fast.
correct. And what I say with these, and therefore I actually created this, is this. So that is like ichha shakti, the desire. So there is this action orientation, the knowledge orientation, meaning the person realizes that the knowledge is required, deep knowledge is required, very hard efforts are required. That's a karma shakti. And you have to have a very clear desire, internal desire to achieve that. So that's the ichha shakti. And so if you are at the lower end of this, going to be very ineffective. If you are at the higher end, diametrically opposite, you can say, in the 3 dimension, then you're going to be effective. Quickly, I want to show you. Some people will come and they'll say, will you be my guru? I'm sure you get that, right? And I said, I mean, first I laugh. I said, well, I'm not in a person who is in a position to be guru for anyone. No, 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 but I consider you guru. So please, can you be my guru? And then
So
over time I learned, and I said,
did you
well,
ever
fine, yeah. Huh?
did you ever explain them the meaning of guru?
If I ever explain,
Yeah. No, did you
no,
explain
go ahead.
them that the guru means heavy? Do you want me to be heavy?
Well, guess what? I don't explain them the meaning, but usually what do I do is I will say, okay, all right. So you want me to be your guru? Fine. And the person might have come up with some problem or some proposal, and he wants or she wants my help. And I said, okay, forget that. Start reading Bhagavad Gita. And the person, no, 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 I don't want to do that. I said, then, well, I cannot be your guru. Right? This is not heavy. This is just, I'm testing you, and that is not working. So this is one. The second one that I find, for example, so this is like they don't realize they're essentially coming to me to compensate for their lack of knowledge or the fact they're clueless. The other question I'll get is, why don't you write about something? I just put it X, and this comes out all the time. And where it is coming from, that karma shakti axis, the shraddha axis, they have something in their mind. They have a shraddha about that could be sattvic shraddha, rajasic shraddha, tamasic shraddha. Okay, they don't make a distinction between that, but they are not capable, so they want me to do it. So they say, why don't you write about something? I said, well, if you think of something, it is you who should write about it. I don't come and ask you, why don't you write about it? And so these are those three axes. And the third axis of ichha shakti, and usually it is like this. They will say, why don't you study about something? Like, why? I'm sure it happens to you, and it happens to our academic professor, I'm sure, which is a desire. So what are they doing is, they have a desire to study or know about something, but they are lazy enough. So they will say, why don't you study? And again, the point is, it cannot be just curiosity. So if you want to know, you have to put some effort. Anyway, so this is a framework. Now let's come to the meat of the subject today. The understanding difference between Deva-Ayana, Pitru-Ayana. These are two different things, but together, versus Uttar-Ayana and Dakshin-Ayana. So we will begin with our season. So right at the center, what you are seeing is the Earth, okay, inclined at an angle. That N refers to north direction. And because if if we are observing from the Earth, we are going to see as if the sun is going around us. Okay, Sun is going around us every day, of course, in 24 hours, but also sun is moving with respect to background stars and completes one circle in a year. So that also you're going to see. So what you're seeing, those 1 through 27 are the positions of 27 nakshatras, just like a zodiac. Those are the 27 reference stars. And then we are saying 4 cardinal points. The cardinal points essentially is spring equinox, 22nd of March, summer solstice, 21st of June, autumnal equinox, 20th of September, winter solstice, 21st, 22nd of December. Now, these are the dates in our times using Gregorian calendar. Now, pay attention. Now we are going to look at the definitions from Vedas, Brahmanas, and Upanishad. And I'll tell you afterwards how those are confused by many of the Indic researchers, both in the East and in the West, and also the consumers. And that's where the whole confusion begins. Now, a solar year in the Indian calendar system begins on the day of spring equinox. So that is where I have that star here. Okay, so that's spring equinox. And in our times, as I said, 22nd, 23rd of March. And so that's where we begin. Then what we have is the 6th season. So Vasanta, that's like spring. Grishma is like summer. Varsha is like rainy season. Sharada is a pre-autumnal. Hemanta, you can say autumn season. And Shishira is like winter. 2 months each, approximately. And I'm going to show you the current star positions for each of the equinox as seen in our times today, meaning 21st century. Now understand, these positions don't change every day, the positions of the star at specific equinox. These will essentially remain same that way for 1,000 years, okay? So it doesn't matter which year we are talking, to 2020 or 2120, 100 years won't make difference. So what we have are those nakshatras at the at the spring equinox. The nakshatra is Uttara Bhadrapada. What that means is if we see from the earth uh, towards the sun, if we can find a way and find the background nakshatra on the 23rd of March, it will be like Uttara Bhadrapada. Okay, same thing for summer solstice, it's the Mruga nakshatra. For Sharad Rutu, the spring equinox, sorry, autumnal equinox is Uttara Falguni, and winter solstice, it is Jeshta. Now I'm going to take you one step further. So these are the nakshatras, are the positions of the sun on those cardinal points. Now recall our knowledge of the position of the full moon day. What is the position on the full moon day? Essentially, earth is between the sun and the moon. So the nakshatra of the sun is exactly opposite to that of the full moon. Okay, so what does that mean is during the summer solstice, which is 21st of June, the sun's position would be in the Mruga, and a full moon that occurs around 21st June, that will be the full month of Jeshta or Ashada. Why? Because that nakshatra, that Jeshta nakshatra, is exactly opposite of the sun, because that's where the full moon would be. So around 21st June, the lunar month would be that of Jeshta or Ashada. So I'm going to do that same thing. Everywhere it will be opposite. And on the 21st December, the sun's position is in Jeshta, but the lunar month, because it has to be opposite to the position of the sun, it will be month of Margashirsha or Pausha. We can do the same thing for Vasanta Sampat or spring equinox, the lunar month of Falguna and Chaitra, because sun position is in the Falguni. And then also we will see lunar month of Bhadrapad or Ashwin at the 20th of September. Okay, once you understand this, the next steps are actually very, very easy. Okay, so it won't take us time. Now, the way Dev-Ayana is defined, it can also called as the path of the sun through the Devas, area of the Devas, or area of the Sura, okay, means the same thing, is defined like this. What does that mean? This path of the sun, the journey of the sun from the day of spring equinox, going all the way through the day of summer solstice and all the way to the day of autumnal equinox. This journey, because what happens, this is actually the sun's position on the equator, on the spring equinox. Think of it, equinox, equal night. The day and night are of an equal length. That's what that equinox is. and that's essentially means the sun's position is right on the equator, okay, or exactly in the east direction. And after that it goes in the northern direction, sun. So sun's journey beginning with the spring equinox, now it is going to rise from the horizon in the northern direction. It will go all the way to the extreme north on 21st June, summer solstice, then starts coming backward. And on the day of autumnal equinox, it's going to be again on the equator or due east. So that journey is called the Deva-Ayana. Okay, so that is the definition you see in Vedas, Brahmanas, and Upanishad. Now the remaining portion. So now from the autumnal equinox to the spring equinox, okay, just like what I described, that is called Pitru-Ayana. And in this ancient times, so what people thought, and we'll not go into the details of it, is that after the our after people died, they went in the southern direction. Okay, if it's a Yama, the one who Yama meaning manages, manages the population count, so to say. Okay, he is taking them in the southern direction, and the northern direction is the direction of the Devas. So this is a definition from equinox to equinox. That is a very easy way to remember. Equinox to equinox is a Deva-Ayana and Pitru-Ayana. Okay. So this is the definition we will find in the Vedas, Brahmanas, and Upanishad. On the other hand, if you come to epics like Ramayana, Mahabharata, also Siddhantas, like specifically we are talking here Surya Siddhanta, but you can also find the works of Bhaskara and many others after that, Ganesh Daivadnya, there are many. And also Puranas, the definition is slightly different. Now, though they also use the different words, but they can be confusing. For example, I'm just going to go back for a second. Remember how we define Deva-Ayana. We said, we can verbally say it is the journey of the sun in the northern hemisphere. So we use the word Uttara, northern celestial sky. Okay, and then Pitru-Ayana is a southern celestial sky. So because of that northern and southern, that's what causes the confusion. Now, when we come to epics and Siddhantas and Puranas, again, everything same. Again, I'm showing you today's situation. And what you are seeing is everything same. But now I'm going to define the Uttara-Ayan. So Uttara-Ayan and Dakshin-Ayan. So now pay attention. This is how the Uttara-Ayan is defined, which is that sun's position starting with the day of winter solstice and going through approximately 6 months all the way to the day of summer solstice. That is called Uttar-Ayana, and naturally you can easily figure it out. Now from summer solstice all the way to the winter solstice is Dakshin-Ayana. So for a simplicity, if you want to remember as a Uttar-Ayan and Dakshin-Ayan, Uttar-Ayan, Dakshin-Ayan, it is easy to remember as a solstice to solstice. And what does Uttarayan means? On the day of winter solstice, the sun's position rising from the east would be in the extreme south direction, in the east direction, but it will be more like southeast. Like we are going to see that very soon, like 21st December. And after 21st December, it starts rising every day slightly to the north of the previous day's position. Okay, and so that's what that we're talking Uttarayan and we're talking Dakshinayan. So when we talk of say Mahabharata, and Bhishmacharya is lying on the bed of arrows, and we have done this in the previous episode. So the Mahabharata war began somewhere here, like in the first month of the Sharad season. Okay, so on the 10th day of the war, Bhishma fell down, and then he was on the bed of arrows for more than 92 days, coming to the day of winter solstice, and that's what he was waiting. He was waiting for the sun to turn northward, not in the northern hemisphere there, but turned northward, just change the direction. That is a Uttarayan, Dakshinayan. Whereas when we talk of a Deva-Ayan and a Pitru-Ayan, we are talking of the sun's rising position. Is it north of the equator or is it south of the equator? Is it like a northeast direction or is it a southeast direction and not exactly the east direction? That's what we are looking at. And now if it works, I think it should work. This is my last slide. I'm going to show you the simulation. Okay, so let's see what it does. All right. Can you see Aditya ji? You can see the screen
Yes.
reasonably clear?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, so this is now this is beautiful. It's a very simple visual demonstration. But what you're seeing here, this is the area of the NCP, North Celestial Pole, and this is the pole position right now. We are talking today's time, 21st century. This is our Polaris here. That Polaris is behind, and this pink dot is which is going to move. And this one is the position of a South Celestial Pole. There is no star here today. Now look at the position. What I just described is that here. So vernal equinox is around Uttara Bhadrapada. Autumnal equinox is around Falguni, Uttara Falguni. That's why the spring month is what? Falgun. And exactly the other one is a Bhadrapad. Same thing we'll see for Mrugashirsha. The summer solstice is at Mruga. I told you on the previous slide. Therefore, at the time of winter solstice, the lunar month would be Mrugashirsha, exactly 180-degree opposite. But now when I start the simulation, or this is now YouTube uploaded video, we are going back in time, okay? Now we are not talking of Earth rotating around itself in 24 hours or Earth rotating around the sun. We are here looking at the precession of the Earth's axis, which is a very slow motion, and that one complete cycle takes 26,000 years. So just watch, I mean, viewers and also Aditya ji, just watch what happens. Notice what you are saying. This is the point of cardinal points are moving through the nakshatras, and do notice the movement of the NCP, the North Celestial Point, for that top northern circle, and same thing here for the Southern Celestial Point at the bottom circle here. So wherever this point is, wherever these points are, if there is a bright star nearby, that will be considered a pole star. In the southern hemisphere, that would be a pole star for the southern hemisphere. I will stop it here approximately around those two big stars, you know, when they come here. Okay, and that will be, say, approximately around that 12,000 point. You know, actually it went slightly further. I'll just bring it here. Look at this. So this is the point of South Celestial Pole, and there is a bright star here, Canopus or Agastya. And this is the point of North Celestial Point, and the bright star here is the Brahma Rashi, Abhijit or Vega. So that is the timing of, look at the timing here. If you see that 12,000, around 12,000 BC, that's the time of Ramayana, the two bright pole stars. Now this is given in Surya Siddhanta and whatnot, right? And so we let that circle complete, and then I'll show you again what I want to show you with this. So what you're seeing is that is how actually the nakshatra positions for the cardinal points where sun would be on winter solstice, summer solstice, spring equinox, and fall equinox will be. That changes. And the whole cycle that we are just doing here takes approximately 26,000 years, which means to go through one nakshatra, it takes approximately 1,000 years, just shy of 1,000 years. And if we consider one zodiac, then 30 degrees, then it takes approximately 2,000 years. So it stopped. Okay, so I'm going to go back, and now what I want to do is this. So we started with our time. Now I want to take you back, Aditya ji, to Mahabharata times. Okay, for example. So how that changes. So I'm just watching here the point of vernal equinox. That's the timing. And so something more, something very interesting. And we will use this simulation in our future conversations also. But here, just look at this. Like around, say, 350 CE, the point of vernal equinox is at Ashwini. Now, that is why all our current calendars, okay, although they are not in a way current, because we still call them current, but they still consider Ashwini as the first nakshatra. And why is that? Because that was the system fine-tuned, calibrated, you can say, about 2,000 years ago, when Ashwini was in the first nakshatra. Since then, because of this precession, the things have changed, but you know, because the change is so slow that we have not made the change. That has also happened to, you see in, for example, Christianity, you will see the 25th December, why it was selected as supposedly the birthday of Jesus. Okay, because they thought that was the day of winter solstice. Now we say 21st December. But when they decided when the Jesus birthday should be celebrated, it's not like his exact birthday. They celebrate. They decided that at the Council of Nicene Council, around like 300, 400 CE, and then they kind of backward track. Say, when should we celebrate? So they assumed that he was born on a winter solstice, a good starting point. And in 300 CE, the winter solstice based on the Julian calendar estimated to have occurred on 25th of December. And that's why they selected 25th of December. That's the story of Christmas Day, by the way. Okay. Very interesting. Again, it's related to the astronomy. Think of it. Okay. Because it was related to calendar. But let me go back. I mean, we
In
are
your
going back in time. And what we are going to say is, remember, the war happened in the month of Mrugashirsha there, and it was the time of the autumn. Okay, so something like here, for example, like 5300 BCE, it's showing here. Look at the position. The vernal equinox is at Ardra, like Mrugashirsha Ardra, which means what? The at the time of the autumnal equinox, the lunar month would be month of a Mrugashirsha. It has to be exactly opposite. Okay. And so that, what does that tell us? At the time of Mahabharata, the Mrugashirsha was the first month of Sharat season. Approximately Ashad, Jeshta Ashad, somewhere here, was the first month of Vasanta Rutu. Because at the autumnal equinox, it is Ashad. So the lunar month would be exactly opposite.
exactly opposite.
Opposite, right? So just, and then look at two more. So winter solstice, the sun is near Revati, Uttara Bhadrapada Revati. So the lunar month on the winter solstice, which is when when Bhishma wanted to leave his body, will be exactly opposite. So where are we going here? Uttara Falguni Chitra. So it was the month of a Falgun. Okay. So and what does Mahabharata says? Mahabharata actually says Magha, like the way it is noted down in Mahabharata is Magha, 1 month before, kind of. Magoyam samano prapto masa punya yudhishthira. And how do we understand it? We will not go into that today. We will stop here. But naming a month, even if you pull a current Indian's lunisolar calendar, sometimes you will find a month name is given as a Magha, but actual position of the sun or moon, you can say full moon, is nowhere close to Magha. It can be 2 nakshatras away. That is because we have to adjust the lunisolar calendar, and that can cause the nomenclature change by plus minus 1 month. Okay, but the big takeaway here is, for Ramayana, Mahabharata, Surya Siddhanta, and the Purana, when we are talking of Ayan, or when we are talking Uttar-Ayana, we means winter solstice to summer solstice. And Dakshin-Ayana means summer solstice to winter solstice, essentially solstice to solstice. But problem happens, and again, by the way, you had some few sessions with Rupa Bhattiji, and they were amazing, and you will have more of that. So sometime she also received some questions, some like people slightly confused. I received quite a few, and therefore also I thought we will do this session to distinguish between Dev-Ayana, Pitru-Ayana versus Uttar-Ayana, and Dakshin-Ayana. Also to remember that Dev-Ayana and Pitru-Ayana, sometimes you can hear the language in Siddhanta literature, astronomy Siddhanta, as the area of a Asura and area of a Sura. The area of a Sura is like a Deva-Ayan, area of Asura is like a Pitru-Ayan. All right, so that's all I wanted to share. So today, actually, we didn't have anything new, but this was there to, this should help. So suppose listening to Bhishma Nirvana, and if you had any questions, somebody had any questions, or listening to some of the sessions of wonderful researcher, Mrs. Bhattiji, if you have some questions and you thought, oh, is that a little bit of a confusion? I would say when watch this particular episode when it comes out on the YouTube, use that as a reference episode, and that should help understand the amazing thing. For example, Bhattiji is doing, with taking us back to 34,500 BC and further back. Okay, but it's not just for antiquity; it is actually very important. In fact, it's crucial if we want to understand the Indian civilization, how much it was intricately connected with agriculture and astronomy and navigation and prosperity. So with that, I will stop sharing.
No, it's very, very interesting, and I really loved the way you presented the model there. Now, in the Bhagavad Puran, it is very clearly mentioned that the sun revolves around the earth,
Hmm.
and the Western science has not agreed. At one point, they will still surrender to Srimad Bhagavad Puran. We all know
Hmm.
that. But the concept of Uttarayan, Dakshayan is very much dependent on the sun's movement, not on Earth's
Hmm.
movement, like you showed.
Correct.
You know,
Ah,
so which is a
good.
very great point that
Yes.
Srimad Bhagavatam cannot be proved wrong over there because
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
and also the why this science is important. Like Bhishma was given Ichha Shakti to leave their
Hmm.
body,
Hmm.
and he wait for Uttarayan. He waited for Uttarayan.
Hmm.
Bhagavad Gita very clearly says that when a person leaves the body in Uttarayan,
Yeah.
goes to Deva.
Yeah.
And so therefore also on practical grounds also this knowledge is very important which you show today.
Very important. In fact, think of it. The Ichha Shakti axis is he wanted to wait until that particular point.
Correct.
Karya Shakti, the what you can say, the Shraddha, let him tolerate the pain, if you want to call it,
Hmm.
of all those time to stay through that. And then the Buddhi Shakti, I mean, you look at the Jnana Shakti, in spite of the fact there are like all these arrows in his body, Shalya, huh? And he's very old also at that point, right? He's injured, but Yudhishthir Maharaj is asking all these questions, and very meticulously he's answering
Answering.
those. That is so. All those three shaktis also came together. Not a surprise. We would expect that in solving any tough problem,
Any
or
tough
with
problem.
all the greats. We would expect that. Can I make a quick comment on what you said about the sun rotating around the earth? What Bhagavatam says. In fact, think it this way. I mean, we shouldn't make that as a dichotomous between what West thinks versus what East thinks, and we even shouldn't give the impression, those who don't know about Indian astronomy, to think that the Indian astronomy thought like sun is going around the earth. Well, actually it says that, but it is a language, it is a practical language. Like Einstein said, no matter what discoveries you make, the discovery has a sense, or an invention or a revolution has a sense of a language. You can only represent that in the language that is spoken and that is understood by people. So because every person's experiences of a sun rising in the east direction, I mean, and then going through the sky, that's why also that is language is used. But if you go to say Aryabhatiya, or if you go to Surya Siddhanta, what is so beautiful is that the mathematics or the descriptions or the constants or the phenomenon described are such that it is very clear to a good reader of good astronomy student, or who understand this in astronomy, that they exactly understood who was going around who and in the what context. For example, the retrograde motion is not described for sun or a moon. Whereas in many other parts of the world, they were confused that why other planets go retrograde, but why sun does not go retrograde and why moon does not go retrograde. But that was not at all a problem for Indian astronomy text. Okay, so and even the elliptical orbits of the planets, that as far as the world goes or Western world goes, they only came to know with a Kepler. That's what we hear.
Correct.
But those particular elliptical motions are already there in Surya Siddhanta. They did a different treatment. They handled it by something called uh, what they call perturbation of epicycles. Like the epicycle size changes. It's a very fascinating way they handle the astronomy changes.
It's phenomenal. I mean, looking at what the research you have done and shown today, my doubts, many doubts are cleared actually with that. And also, it has it's not just theoretical or scientific discussion. It has direct relevance in our lives because we can plan our lives. Farmers can plan when to sow the seeds,
Mhm.
and we can plan when to start a new work.
Hmm.
It's always said that you should do in the Uttar Paksha,
Ah,
and so many different life events can be controlled around that
hmm.
time. And
Right, right.
also for Americans is very important because Americans are the hardest working people on the planet. So a little bit they'll get 6 months of rest too.
Well, the other very practical useful aspect is the aspect of astrology. And I would say personally, I don't understand astrology myself, so I don't want to talk of how astrology works. I mean, my wife is astrologer, and she looks at it as an empirical astrology. She says we may not able to explain the principles working behind it, Maybe, we cannot explain. Maybe there are no principles. But bottom line is it works. Okay, it works in a probabilistic way or propensity way. I mean, maybe you can ask her that question sometime. But my point is, the accurate knowledge of astronomical calendar is also very much required for astrological predictions, especially when you go back in a deep antiquity, because many parameters change. And how do you take that into account, and how do you keep track of this prediction? So it is important for many reasons, like you said, agriculture, you said for weather and whatnot, but also for astrology.
No, given the current economic conditions, the world over, astrology is becoming more relevant because
Everyone wants to know what's going to happen when the COVID is going to go away, right? Yeah. And it is
many,
important for that reason that the astrologers also know their limitations. Like you see in the social media, they make commenting every day on what is going to happen. The funny thing is, when their predictions go wrong, they don't come back and say my prediction went wrong. Now I asked Ashwini, I said, okay, so what about COVID? She says, hey, there may be a way people can predict this. I don't know. It's not just a COVID. Elections, like election time comes and people ask, and she says, sure, people do, and maybe they come out correct, and there may be a science of it. She doesn't know. So I think it's important to even tell what you don't know.
coming back to Yudhishthir, and I love to bring that topic because of our
Hmm,
channel Sattology,
hmm,
that every major king of the world had an advisor who was a Vaidya, which today also people follow.
hmm,
There was an economic advisor, which also people follow. The science advisor, people follow. Raksha, they follow. There's a defense, they follow. But nobody keeps a Jyotishi.
hmm,
And Jyotish was an important aspect advisor to Maharaj Yudhishthir.
mhm.
Because you need, for everything else, you need to have somebody. Why not for Jyotish also?
Right.
Because this movement of stars can define many things like the productivity of the farms,
Hmm,
and it is based on every single location. So somebody living in New Mexico will have a different arrangement of Dakshin-Ayana, Uttar-Ayana, because the
hmm.
sky is different.
Right.
And somebody living in the Northeast, in the New Hampshire, may have totally different one.
Correct.
Somebody living in South America will have different ones. So this knowledge is important for everybody, not
Hmm.
just people living in India.
Yeah, so a quick last word. So today what we covered, I mean, is everyone, I want everyone to look at this, and especially the people who listen to the YouTube, as a reference document. Now in this case we can say reference YouTube document, that everyone will need to go frequently as we explore the antiquity of Indian civilization, different aspects of it. And eventually, we hope to get, not personally me, because astrology is not my subject, but possibly into astrology. But even there is a medicinal astronomy or medicinal astrology. And it is experimental because we have lost a lot of knowledge. And for that purposes also. So it's not just knowing the dating of a Mahabharat, but eventually, even setting the calendar right so that it is useful for agriculture, for a good agriculture, good harvest, for medicinal astrology, medicinal astronomy. I think it is going to be very crucial. Before it was very important for navigation, but now with the GPS and all, it may not be that important. But for medicinal astronomy, it's going to be important. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's all I have to say.
good point. You can grow the right herbs at the right time, and also mind. The biggest problem in the world is going to be the mental problem,
Mhm.
and we are already facing it. A lot of crazies walking around, and so moon movement definitely helps there.
Well, that's where the word lunatic comes from, by the way. True.
So, so thank you very much for Nilesh ji for sharing this. It's a very eye opener for me also, and thank you for the viewers for being patiently listening to this recording and live show that we have. Uh, so next week we'll have another episode, which will come. Sorry about my phone. We'll have another episode with much more details on another topic. Till then, let's digest this one. This is going to take a lot of time. So tomorrow, I think number 4, Bhishma Nirvana, will be out, and we purposely delayed it because 1, 2, 3 had so much content that unless you digest 3, you cannot digest the fourth one. So that's a fourth course coming on Bhishma Nirvana tomorrow or day after, and then we will have another show repeat of this one continuing. Namaskar and thank you.